Well, I don't know what to fucking say. I guess the story kind of starts with me. My name's Brad Jones. Most people, if you know me at all, will know me as Brad West. I started my time in wrestling in Perth, Western Australia with Explosive Pro Wrestling.
Quite frankly, I don't think they have a chance. Well, Brad West, as you said, a lot of experience on his behalf.
For me, EPW will always be a place where I made lifelong friendships, where my peers would push me creatively. Also, being there for 17 years gave me the opportunity to work in nearly every role in front of and behind the curtain. However, at this time, my most fulfilling role writing for EPW was coming to a close, as my wife and I were about to chase another passion.
After travelling around the States for a while, I thought I was done with wrestling. We were meant to be filming a travel web series which I was going to complete when we got back. However, as soon as I got back to Perth, my good friend David Storm sent me a message asking me if I would like to go out with the Progress guys and the WWE UK guys who were on tour. That night, I was asked would I like to come back and book for EPW. The answer was yes. However, that week my wife Gemma was tapped on the shoulder and asked to apply for a job in Darwin. She asked me what I thought and I said, there's no wrestling in Darwin.
From body slams to thunderous falls, you just can't look away.
Oh, powerbomb there!
A sweaty tango these newcomers are just starting to get the hang of. With 17 years of wrestling experience under his belt and a resurgence in the sport's popularity sweeping the country, Brad Jones is bringing the high-flying action to the territory.
I think it's the most unique art form in the world. It is kind of like a sport, it's very athletic, but at its base it is drama, but it is a live-action fight scene.
It seems they're starting with this simple stuff.
A lot of locking up. Headlocks, headlock takeovers, all your takeovers, so like your snapmares, fireman's carries.
The lands are a bit hard just to get it right, but the rolls were the hardest.
It's hoped they'll be able to put shows on later this year. Lily Greer, 9 News.
So we moved to Darwin in about September 2018 and immediately I tried to put together a crew of wrestlers because I think, number one, building a wrestling promotion, the most important thing you need is a community. Without that community, you haven't got anything. About 2 months after moving here, I got a message from someone I used to work with in Perth called Leo Pratt. He had moved away from EPW maybe 3 or 4 years prior and was living out in Port Hedland and messaged me and said, hey, I've got a job in Darwin. So I was immediately excited. I didn't really say anything because I didn't know if he wanted to wrestle anymore or wanted to have anything to do with wrestling. But when he got here shortly afterwards, I was like, you want to train these newbies with me? And he said yes, and Leo and I went to work at training the first crop of pro wrestlers in Darwin. Training at the PCYC, Leo and I trained them tough.
I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw a sponsored post. It was Pro Wrestling Darwin, and I nearly jumped out of my skin, to be honest. I was so excited. I was like, holy shit!
To have a bunch of dudes that wanted to push each other and not be better than each other, but bring each other up.
We had them rolling.
In the early days, I mean, we didn't have a ring. We didn't even have our own venue. We were just in a gymnastics space, using gymnastics mat.
I may have been a bit better than Bruce in each training session, and
Our first lesson of bumping was, this is going to be shit, the floor's no good, but we're going to do it anyway.
Our first day, that really tests you.
we learned to take bumps and take hits and do rolls on a harder ground.
To be honest, that's what sort of my hesitation was when I first was going down and seeing Billy after just training 1 day a week.
If your answer is yes, then you continue. If not, then you eventually leave. But I just kept at it.
Brad will push you to death in cardio, but when it comes to wrestling, Leo was the main at the start. Brad is the mastermind behind all this.
The evil genius, basically. And yeah, then like Billy said, thought it took a lot to fluster him, but he's just really good at holding his composure most of the time.
Definitely tell who played good cop, bad cop. Brad was easygoing. Leo was a bit of a hard ass, but he meant well.
Leo was pretty intimidating to start out with. Just the big, bald guy, muscly fella walking at you, talking to you. Then you hear him talk and he's not intimidating at all.
They understood the circumstances and they had to learn how to deal with the different training standards of what they were used to.
No ring to be seen. Every week, people kept on coming and growing. We'd grow to the point where we had a roster of about 10 people training with us. As we were moving on and our ring wasn't arriving, we started making relationships with the fight gyms around Darwin, and we'd go into fight gyms and teach the guys how to run ropes on kickboxing rings. And it would work. The students of Darwin, to start off with, had the strangest education in professional wrestling.
Step foot in an actual wrestling ring. And so trying to put together matches to do in front of a crowd when we had no idea what being inside a ring was going to be like.
I ordered a ring from the States to be delivered, and I booked a date for our first show. Unfortunately though, I was told the ring would only take 2 months to build and ship to Australia. It took 6. I booked my show 5 months away, meaning we could get 3 months of training in the new ring. But that was not to happen, and we had to lead into our first show with no ring at all. So we had to buy a second ring, a boxing ring, and work on that to get us through our first show. Unfortunately, however, we couldn't get into a building in Darwin. It would seem that no one wanted to take my money, so we could get into a building to actually convert this boxing ring into a wrestling ring. Eventually, we ended up subleasing a building from a gardening business, and I'm here right now, we're in the back of a gardening building. But this is exactly what we needed to be able to work on our ring, to start training and moving forward.
What was the lead into Evolve or Dissolve like? Fuck me.
Leading in to Evolve or Dissolve, without sounding dramatic, was the absolute worst time in my life.
For a week before the show, I couldn't sleep.
For any other promoter who is in it strictly for the money, not for the love of wrestling and not for the willingness to try and create a scene.
It was incredibly stressful. Everybody said that it looked like I had maybe aged 20 years.
We really worked our asses off to try and get this show on the road, and
everything would go wrong, from us needing to leave the PCYC, to our ring not showing up on time, just needing to buy another ring on top of that.
Despite his demeanour, Brad is fiercely determined, and I think once he put out that date, there was no going back. And you know, the fact that the ring hadn't arrived, Brad and Gemma had to spend a whole lot of money in order to be able to source a boxing ring just to be able to get the show to show day.
I mean, I got to work at PCYC and then went on 2 weeks holiday, and next minute arrived and there was a 20-foot boxing ring in a new workout space.
It was a very interesting time. There were a lot of high intense moments.
It was an apt name. It was a perfect name for that show, Evolve or Dissolve, because we had to keep evolving. Everything went wrong. Anything that could go wrong in that show went wrong.
There was no way, even with a sellout crowd, we were ever going to break even on that first show.
Life was getting in everyone's way in the lead up to Evolve or Dissolve, let alone all the drama that Brad was having with the ring. The ring. Holy shit.
At the same time, we just had to keep pushing. I felt it was the most important thing artistically I'd ever done.
I think at the time, there was no question in Brad and Gemma's mind whether the show was actually going to go ahead or not. That there's very much an attitude of when it's your turn to go, you just do. There's no time to talk. There is only time to do, and it's only in hindsight that you look back and wonder how they got through those moments.
Not knowing full well what was going to be happening, and you know, whether people were going to actually come and watch us.
The Super Triad series was always an idea I had in my head. One, it would be cost effective. I thought it would be cost effective. To make sure a show would have a certain level of world-class matches on it. So the idea being the Super Triad series is a round-robin tournament where you fly in 3 people from interstate, and there is a minimum of 3 to 4 matches on the show out of those 3 people. The first one for our first show, Evolve or Dissolve, featured 3 of the best wrestlers in the country, but 3 of the best wrestlers from Western Australia. My background, David Storm, Gavin McGavin, and Marcus Pitt. As soon as that plane arrived for the first show with all of our friends on it, it took all the weight off. It was like, as soon as all my friends hit the ground, they all wanted to make this work. So immediately, David Storm.
He was an absolutely fantastic guy. He knew what he knew about wrestling.
While we were in the brown smart setting up the theater, the ring and stuff, he could see that I was freaking out. He was coming next to me, you know, to calm me down.
We had the benefit of being able to help this place take off with a level of our experience there to be able to guide the guys and girls who hadn't been there before.
One of the most talented, respected wrestlers in the country spends the evening looking after your 2-year-old while you're getting more reps in the ring.
There was a fellow wrestler from Darwin that came with his kid, and his kid, you know, kids are kids, he couldn't concentrate. So what Dave did, he took his kid out, played with the kid, so the dad can do his job.
David Storm was a world of help. Getting into that first match, we spent a lot of time with him.
I walked in straight away, walked up to me, shook my hand, introduced himself, and he was just so willing to help out, so willing to teach us stuff, which was amazing for me.
Marcus Pitt.
He also knew exactly what he needed to do when he needed to do it.
Marcus Pitt, very good dude.
Man, that dude is a beast.
He's really intimidating as Marcus Pitt. Backstage, he's not at all. He's one of the nicest blokes you meet. He's really friendly.
I had a chat with him. I asked him a couple of questions about nutrition, because it's his job, and he answered each and every one of my questions. It could be like, mate, people pay.
Gavin McGavin.
Meeting him and understanding his craft and getting pointers.
Unreal. The way he plays the crowd is just fantastic.
Excitement. It was really, really cool. It was the first time in my career I'd ever been there for a company's first ever show. and everyone involved, from the people setting up the merch to the guys setting up the ring to people having their first ever matches in front of a live crowd. There was just this buzz, and the crowd themselves felt it as well. It was something brand new. It was the birth of professional wrestling in Darwin, and I was just so glad and happy to be a part of it.
What I did see was a dude blow his calf out completely in the first 5 minutes of a match, finish that match as if nothing had happened.
About 3 or 4 minutes into my first match of the night, I tore my calf big time. It felt like I got shot with an arrow. I just went to plant my foot and run off, and it just tore. And there was no way that I was going to, call it quits or bail out in the match. I was going to give the fans their money's worth. I was going to give them the show, because I was the first match ever.
Hobble backstage and then pitch to the promoter a way that he could have his second match without it affecting the show. And that just showed me what the wrestling community is all about.
He carried on, he did his best, and we were able to still put on what I thought was a really presentable performance.
Also, to be able to go out there and do it for a guy like Brad, who has done so much for me in my own wrestling career and so much for EPW, which is a company that lives in my heart, it was really amazing to be able to go out there and do that for him and to have that honour bestowed upon me. So, injury or not, I was going to make sure I got through that match.
I think there are definitely two sorts of personalities in the wrestling industry, but for people who come from the stock that I do and Brad does, and that Marcus Pitt and Gavin McGavin come from, that there's no question that we are extremely proud of what we present and what we represent in wrestling, and we were going to hold that up on the night no matter what.
Even Edith Knight, who was having her first match, were all running around doing whatever they could to get this show running smoothly.
I felt very humbled to be able to be involved in the first ever pro wrestling show in Darwin. It was definitely an historic occasion, and it certainly felt like it.
Whether it was helping with the talent, seeing if there was anything I need. Even Giles O'Brien, who came over out of retirement to referee that show, I remember constantly, he was like, "Have you had anything to eat today, Brad?" And I'm like, I don't know. And then he'd come back with food.
I'd retired the previous year, so this was just like something to tick off the bucket list. I'd never reffed outside of WA, and this was Brad. And it was the first ever show for the first ever promotion. That sort of thing is huge.
I had exhausted everything I could possibly do to get that show there, and just to have a crew that flew in and believed in the show as much as we did was awesome. One of the most important people to come along on that first trip and second and third trip is my old booking/writing partner from Perth, one of my best friends in the world, Devlin Reeves. Probably one of the names in Australian wrestling you wouldn't hear a lot, but definitely one of the best guys around.
We have wrestled so many times over the years in Perth and became, part of a booking team in EPW. I think Brad's strength really is coming up with just endless creative ideas. I don't know how he does it. I sort of would scoop in, take those ideas and either sort of finish them off or work out the fine details. I think that's why we worked really well together as a team.
The input that Devlin had on our matches for the Evolve or Dissolve was crucial.
And also Devlin Reeves, those two guys really helped me and Nick put that match together and turn it from just a wrestling match into a story.
Best thing about him is brutal honesty. Yeah. Really honest, and that brutal honesty is really what makes you better.
Dale is my favorite. Every match of mine so far has a stare from Dale.
He'd come in and has been for each show, working as an agent almost with some of the matches.
Considering they'd had, a handful of days to get ready inside a reinforced boxing ring, I thought, oh, this could be a disaster. But I guess also seeing their passion, their hard work, their determination, it was really quite incredible. They were super excited and just, I don't think were prepared to let any obstacle get in their way to make this a success.
We had the luxury of having him stand ringside, watch us do all of our final run-throughs.
So really my students in Darwin are getting the exact same treatment that the EPW wrestlers would have when Dale and I were working as a team in Perth.
You could tell the guys that were all there were nervous, they were excited, they were just off in their own little worlds, just basically because this was their big opportunity. This was what they had been training for, and yeah, the day was finally here.
Thankful for any bit of advice or whatnot that myself, Marcus Pitt and David Storm could impart on them, and they want to be good.
The show was phenomenal. The natural selection for a bunch of dudes that had been working on a gym mat for 6 months and had been in a ring for all of 3 days prior to the show. I think we did about as good as you could possibly expect.
I guess what was the first match was Lockie and Nico on that one, wasn't it? Yeah. And like that match fucking blew me away, seeing that they were the local boys.
Oof, unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was living at this moment. And I came out and started smashing everyone, and people went mental. I went mental too at this moment.
That Battle Royale involved all of us learning how to wrestle.
It really helped to build my confidence in the ring. I had never wrestled in front of a crowd before, and I was terrified to do so.
As soon as you walk down that entrance ramp, you walk out, it's showtime, and everything just takes over, all your natural, everything you've practiced, all the hours and hours and hours and hours and countless run-throughs for all of it just came together, and it was awesome. It was one of the most fun things I think I've ever done in my life.
I got to get my ass kicked by Madness, so that was awesome.
But after I did it, and it wasn't for very long, I was eliminated pretty quickly in that rumble. But I just knew that once I had done it there, I could do it anywhere.
Coming out after first show and there not being that much wrong with it, it was great. And I feel everyone else was happy with it.
The culmination of, this group, their hard work, their never say die attitude, their passion, their determination. Seeing the payoff to all of that was just so satisfying to me.
The thing that really kicked up about Evolve or Dissolve was the performances from the Perth guys.
Watching the interstaters was a really big boost for everyone involved. It really helped us step up and see what levels we needed to push towards.
Marcus Pitt, David Storm and Gavin McGavin all came out there and showed Pro Wrestling Darwin. Even though they're the guys from interstate, they really set up the show for us to do our best.
Glory bound, a warrior now. A monster porter, sick and shut out where my story found. I overcame every obstacle that's ever placed. The gods have promised victory will one day know my face. Won't be denied the pride, won't be denied my prize. RTJ all day, every day, every day round here. Me to the other guys. Don't know, don't care, don't really give a fuck. So long they know, don't fuck with mine. And let it be known and truth be shown. We kill shit dead, no compromise. as vicious, venomous El Tornado kick.
Don't doubt we will mow down you dogs. No clout to spend here at all. We will now clown you all. Go shout it to the gods. RTJ's arrived to make a minion cry. Burn our image in their eyes. Better get a little bit of that Zen shit in you. I'm a long hitter, but I fly the fuck out of frog rap dinner. How the fuck out the duck get bigger, better, meaner, living like a sinner, mean to meter. Either bleed or scream to me leader. Back to the ether.
Top End Hostility was our second show. I left quite a big amount of time in between the first and second show just to get over the stress and to actually feel like I wanted to promote another show.
The second time round was much different. You know, seeing Brad, he looked kind of like his normal self as opposed to the first time round.
Like, it was the preparation for my first show, so it was quite hectic, quite nerve-wracking, strenuous.
The lead up to Top End Hostility was really stressful.
I also wanted to see the development of the guys. They had gone from wrestling on mats to a boxing ring to a real wrestling ring.
I was excited. I couldn't wait.
We had a lot more understanding of how the ring works and where to work around, because we had a proper wrestling ring by then.
Within, minutes, having a look at them train and start to work through some of their spots, it was shocking. It was shocking to see how quickly these guys have developed in such a short space of time.
We're so much more organised heading into Top End Hostility. We actually had a ring, we had a training space.
I kept forgetting spots, I kept messing up moves. My opponent was at sea a lot of the time.
I had learned from my beatiness and trying to get things done in the heat of the moment, and tried to show him that it's about telling a story.
Brought in some of the best people as usual. We set up Leo Pratt at our first show because he has a lot of experience. He was the person who I made my head trainer. So I put him in this Super Triad series after he won the first natural selection elimination match, and brought in Damian Slater, someone with a lot of worldly wrestling experience, who would also, as Davis Storm did in the first trip, would be able to train some of my talent as well. I also brought in Alex Kingston, who I believe is one of the most underrated talents in this country. It was a good show, a good showing from the Interstaters.
Alex Kingston and Damian Slater, again, both fantastic guys, super supportive, and really helped show us an extra level.
Damian Slater and Alex Kingston, great guys, very good wrestlers too.
And give us a lot of pointers on what it takes to be the best in this country.
Damian Slater, he did a one-on-one class with us, and he was absolutely fantastic. He showed myself a lot of different perspectives.
Really patient, explains everything really well. If you're not getting it, he'll take the time to explain everything. That was my first seminar hosted by a professional.
Alex Kingston, seeing what he could do and how he knew that ring better than any of us had ever known that ring.
Just had to sit down and have a chat to him. He's fantastic. Watching him in the ring, you can see he really really does enjoy what he does. He knows how to work a crowd, and the crowd loved him.
A good showing from my crew.
One, it was a big step up for me and Nico. We had to go from this short little match that we had in Evolve or Dissolve to doing quite a longer match with a lot more involved in it.
All in all, I felt it came out great, the whole show. Super happy with how our match came out. That was, that sort of went beyond all expectations of how good that match actually came out.
What was it like performing on the show? I had the best time. I almost wish I could relive it again and again.
Yeah, the show was good. I really like it. Was good to be a part of good production and everything. I guess it's the thing that we all sort of fucking feel about. And I know Brad really hates it. Is the loose ropes.
The fucking ropes. I mean, we had our ring issues on the first show where the ring wouldn't bounce because it was a boxing ring. So everybody that was on that show really had to suck it up and take some really harsh bumps. But this show, we had our wrestling ring. It arrived. Problem being, though, still some teething issues. I guess the thing with the wrestling ring, if underneath that ring isn't right, isn't taut, it isn't making those poles go out, the ropes slacken and it looks absolutely horrible on camera. It drove me crazy sitting at ringside trying to produce a show while looking at those slack ropes, when at the gym all through it was fine.
But hey, still a good show.
Those fucking ropes.
Fucking ropes.
First they knocking, now they hopping. All on the way cause they see me popping. Big, large pockets, they start flocking. Here's what I say when they keep knocking.
My daddy said trust no man but your brothers, and never leave your day ones in the gutter. My daddy said treat young girls like your mother. My mama said trust no, use a. I'ma act 1, 2, stop the track, bring it back. What it do? See, Ricky said never let nobody get the one up on you. If they run up on you, hit them with a 1, 2 or a bitch slap. Leave the cul-de-sac, your brothers gon' have your back regardless. And stick with your day one homies that was here before you started. And fear no man but the man above your head. Pray before you go to bed, everything my mama said.
First they knocking, now they hopping. All on the way cause they see me popping. Big, large pockets, they start flocking. Here's what I say when they keep knocking.
My daddy said trust no man but your brothers, and never leave your day ones in the gutter. My daddy said treat young girls like your mother. My mama said trust no, use a. My daddy said trust no man but your brothers, and never leave your day ones in the gutter. My daddy said treat young girls like your mother. My mama said trust no, use a. Your mama ain't shit, your daddy ain't shit. And I've been making waves way before nostalgic. That was back in Carol City, yeah, when I was just a chick. With the all black faded Dickie with the Raider fit. That was it, we was lit, y'all wasn't even yet. We was 3-6, Wu-Tang mixed with Dipset. Ricky used to take me to my first shows ever. Will only drop jewels way before they drop cheddar.
First they mocking, now they hopping. All on the way cause they see me popping. Big, large pockets, they start flocking. Here's what I say when they keep knocking.
My daddy said trust no man but your brothers, and never leave your day ones in the gutter. My daddy said treat young girls like your mother. My mama said trust no, use a. My daddy said trust no man but your brothers, and never leave your day ones in the gutter. My daddy said treat young girls like your mother. My mama said trust no, use a.
Killer Instinct was definitely the most interesting out of the shows because I deliberately stepped out of my immediate friend group. Since the first show, I had been in contact with Sid Parker quite a lot, going back and forward, talking about wrestling, talking about how much he wanted to come up here, and his partner, Erica Reed. And I thought potentially it could work, but ultimately, I was always going to lean towards my West Australian roots. It so happened that I booked a date that clashed with EPW in Perth. So I thought, wow, this is really the opportunity I'm looking for.
Who would want to fly up two people to a show that no one knows who they are in the town? No one in Darwin knows who Sid and Erica are, I assume. And little did I know that Brad West is fucking insane. He is a lunatic in all the right ways.
So I contacted Sid and Erica and asked them if they were free on that date. Unfortunately, they were not.
And I just thought, fuck.
So not only was I booked not against EPW, we're in different parts of the country, but although was I booked on the same night as EPW and my usual talent pool disappeared, I couldn't get these two people that I'd been talking about getting for a long time. So I turned to Jen and I was like, hey, what do you think? Why don't we go back to the Brown Smart and see if we can change this date to fit when they're free? And that happened.
Then this maniac decides to contact the venue and get them to change their shit so we can be on the show. It blew my mind. I didn't know what to say.
Sid said to me one day, do you want to go to Darwin? And of course I said yes, because why wouldn't I want to go to Darwin?
Their passion for the game is unbelievable. It's very apparent that those two live or work to live the dream.
He was happy to give you advice, tips on how to get over, character information.
They do whatever they need to do so that they can travel and perform and wrestle every week.
It was pretty awesome and a pretty good sign of things to come, because when I pitched him the third member of the Triad series, he was sort of looking at a few people here and there, and I just said, I got the perfect guy. No one in Melbourne wants to book it. They're scared of it because I can get a little bit carried away with things.
Sid coming back to me and going, I think I know the third guy for this Super Triad series. And I'm like, who? And he said, Caveman Ugg. And I was like, wow, well, I just met him last week in Perth for when I went back to watch Reawakening, and he was there also. So when I was there, I made a beeline towards him and introduced myself. So Sid really organised that, and we stepped outside of my immediate friend group, the EPW bubble, and brought in some people from the East Coast. I thought it was very important to show some love to the East Coast.
This is different. They were from Victoria, not from WA as the previous two shows. And they told their own story.
There were three really unique individual, different characters, and I was excited to see what they could do and what they would do.
I was excited to fight him, to be honest, and not only was it the first time that I'd wrestled Caveman Ugg, which had been building for, I don't know how long. This was the first time I was going to get to wrestle Erica, and I was actually scared, if I'm honest. I was nervous.
And then like a couple of days later, he tells me, you're wrestling the Prehistoric Death Cult. What the fuck?
I didn't tell Erica who she was wrestling until the bookings were confirmed. So I was a little bit trepidatious, but you should have seen the look on her face when I told her she was wrestling myself and Caveman Ugg.
Having them together, like having the Prehistoric Death Cult together, even though we were fighting against each other, was wholesome. It was made me feel warm, made me feel nice.
I mean, everyone knows the history with Erica and myself. We're partners, we're life partners. But her and Ugg go back longer than her and I.
I loved it. I missed having my team together. I missed, even though like the boys weren't all great, term.
She was trained by Ugg, so it was special, man. It was one of the most special, magical nights of my professional wrestling career.
And it turned out to be awesome. Those three were phenomenal. They came in, they filmed content in Melbourne in the lead up to their Super Triad Series matches at Killer Instinct, and they really knocked it out of the park. They brought something different. The whole point was to turn the Super Triad Series on its head for the third installation.
When we met them on the night, they were just amazing people to work with and get a lot of knowledge off them.
Most down-to-earth people that I've ever met in my life.
Killer Instinct. That was definitely the hardest show we've done for me. Wraith had to fly back in from Queensland now, so that put a lot of strain on the match. And the fact that I was in the match for so much of it meant that I had to remember everything.
Killer Instinct was a culmination of Evolve or Dissolve and Top End Hostility. Everything seemed to finish story-wise.
Yeah, that was my heel turn. For some reason, booing me felt great. I don't know if that's good.
But yeah, honestly, like, everyone was so lovely. And just, like, there's so many cool memories that just happened after the show that for me to know. But it was just a cool bond.
The guys that he trained from nothing on a mat in a boxing gym to be on a show in front of a sold-out crowd, that's magic. That's special. That's dedication. That's passion. That's what all of those guys and girls had. They wanted to build something.
Like, it was just a group of weird kids in a town that had nothing to do. There's not much happening. Some fella come in and was like, hey, come with me, we're going on an adventure.
As well as what had been dubbed online as the Prehistoric Triad Series, our local roster had to step up as many of our stories were coming to a head. None more so than for Leo Pratt and Ginjaro.
Pratt and Ginjaro's street fight was fucking mental. It was insane.
It was evident pretty quickly that they'd come a long way again. They were so much more comfortable with performing and understanding their character. And you look at that show and most of the guys on there, to consider that that's their third ever match.
The show was fantastic. We sold out. We sold out the Browns Mart with about 4 or 5 hours before the show. You put in 12 plus months of effort and you get a product of what you see at Killer Instinct.
I can swallow a bottle of alcohol in her. Feel like Godzilla. Better hit the deck like the cartilla. My whole squad's in here walking around the party. A cross between a zombie apocalypse and Bobby the Rain Heenan, which is probably the same reason I wrestle with Mania Shades in this bitch. I'm posse'd up. Consider it to cost me a costly mistake if they sleeping on me. The hoes better get insomnia. ADHD hydroxy cut. Pass the Kabasi. In AA with an AK melee, finna set it like a play date, better vacate, retreat like a vacay Mayday. This beat is cray cray, Ray J, H-A, laughing all the way to the bank, I spray flames, they cannot tame or placate the monster.
You get in my way, I'ma feed you to the monster. I'm normal during the day, but at night turn to a monster. When the moon shines like ice road truckers, I look like a villain out of those blockbusters.
Thug to the fire, spit a
monster. Blood on the dance floor, Louis V carpet.
Fire, thug to the fire. Told him lick the balls, had him just appalled. Did so many things that pissed him off. It's impossible to list them all. And in the midst of all this, I'm in a mental hospital with a crystal ball, trying to see what I still be like this tomorrow. Whisper dog voices whisper. My fist is ball back up against the wall. Pencil drawn. This is just a song to go ballistic on. You just pull the pistol on the guy with a missile launcher. I'm just a lot
Ness, the mythological. Quick to tell a bitch you off like a fifth of vodka. When you twist the top of the bottle, I'm a
monster. You get in my way, I'ma feed you to the monster. I'm normal during the day, but at night turn to a monster. When the moon shines like ice road truckers, I look like a villain out of those blockbusters.
till the fire spit a
monster. Blood on the dance floor, the Louis V carpet.
Fire, till the fire. If you never gave a damn, raise your hand, cause I'm about to set trip. Vacation plans, I'm on point like my index is. So all you will ever get is some motherfucking finger. Prostate exam. How can I have all these fans that perspire like a liar's pants? I'm on fire and I got no plans to retire, and I'm still the
monster. You get in my way, I'ma feed you to the monster. I'm normal during the day, but at night turn to a monster. When the moon shines like ice road truckers, I look like a villain out of those blockbusters.
till the fire spit a
monster. Blood on the dance floor, the Louis V carpet.
Fire, till the fire. I'm just a product of the cricket onyx. Told him nick the balls, had him just appalled. Did so many things that pissed him off. It's impossible to list them all. And in the midst of all this, I'm in a mental hospital with a crystal ball, trying to see what I still be like this tomorrow. Risperdal voices whisper, my fist is ball back up against the wall, pencil drawn. This is just a song to go ballistic on. You just pull a pistol on the guy with a missile launcher. I'm just a Loch Ness, the mythological. Quick to tell a bitch you off like a fifth of vodka. When you twist the top of the bottle, I'm a
monster. You get in my way, I'ma feed you to the monster. I'm normal during the day, but at night turn to a monster. When the moon shines like ice road truckers, I look like a villain out of those blockbusters.
till the fire spit a
monster. Blood on the dance floor, the Louis V carpet.
Fire, till the fire. If you never gave a damn, raise your hand, cause I'm about to set trip. Vacation plans, I'm on point like my index is. So all you will ever get is some motherfucking finger. Prostate exam. How can I have all these fans that perspire like a liar's pants? I'm on fire and I got no plans to retire, and I'm still the
monster. You get in my way, I'ma feed you to the monster. I'm normal during the day, but at night turn to a monster. When the moon shines like ice road truckers, I look like a villain out of those blockbusters.
till the fire spit a
monster. Blood on the dance floor, the Louis V carpet.
Fire, till the fire.
This is kind of hard for me because Darwin, my time in Darwin, was always a working holiday. At the same time, in my working holiday, I wanted to start a wrestling promotion that would trigger the start of a wrestling scene in the Northern Territory. I was only meant to be here for a year, then 2 years, then 2.5 years. And now with the coronavirus in full effect, I'm at my gym, but I'm the only one here, only one allowed inside this building. And we don't know how long for.
It's pretty rough. It's really taken me away from that element, and it's really shit, actually.
You know, nothing's been the same the last few months. We haven't trained. We haven't stepped foot inside a ring.
I do miss the physical aspect of it all. I miss the brotherhood and the family that we've all formed.
As part of just the whole Pro Wrestling Darwin crew, I'm pretty happy with, well, I'm ecstatic with what we've done, where we started, 12 months ago, not even 12 months ago with the first show, and what we've built to, what we've built now.
I fear with COVID-19 that my time is incredibly shortened.
Well, I'm not willing to give up. Like, if Pro Wrestling Darwin starts for good.
I don't feel like my body of work is done yet. I don't feel like what I needed to accomplish is done yet, and I don't feel that this is not the end of Pro Wrestling Darwin, and it won't be, and we are definitely going to come back 100% better.
You know, there's at least there's ideas for at least another 3 shows, and there's ideas for another project we we're going to do, and we're all looking forward to doing every single one of those things. But I guess it's just more disappointment, if anything. If it's the last sort of incarnation.
I don't know where things go from here when Brad inevitably leads Darwin, but I hope that the guys and girls that are left behind can help grow this from this point forward, that they've had a taste of how amazing professional wrestling can be, and that they're able to grow it into being their own thing. At the moment, it's very much Brad's thing. It represents Brad's time in wrestling really well, and it's exciting to see and anticipate what it might actually become in the future.
We've surpassed the individual, the second performer and the promotion, and we've actually really locked in a crowd and a following that is going to support Pro Wrestling Darwin going forward. And I hope that COVID-19 isn't enough of a distraction to take away from all these people, because Pro Wrestling Darwin is something innovative and special to Darwin that really needs to survive this and make it to the next chapter.
I am very confident with the crew that I've got here that pro wrestling will continue in the Northern Territory regardless whether I'm here or not. But I have something to prove here. We've got through our first 3 shows. For me, there's 5 shows. 5 very important shows. Now, these shows were only meant to be the first 5, and Pro Wrestling Darwin would have went on after that for a while. But these first 5 shows, I believe, set up all the wrestlers where they need to be. It sets up who your stars are. It sets up who your hard workers are. It sets up your future stars. However, I know a group of guys here are very keen for this to continue when the day comes I have to go. I was just hoping to get a lot more done before that day comes.
I've known Brad and Jem for nearly 20 years, and when it comes to life and wrestling, they're easily the biggest pieces of shit I've ever come across. When they left Perth a few years ago, I think I was relieved, and so was everyone else.
It's the first wrestling promotion in Darwin. It's huge for them. And it could sink. Like, all the work that they're doing could just blow up in their face. So for me, I'm like, cool. I'm here in the background. You tell me what you need me to do, and I will do it. I will not make waves. I'm just over here. Let me know what you need. Which is the complete opposite to Devlin, who was winding Gemma up at every possible opportunity. In particular, the ref shirts. So I had brought the traditional black and white stripes and a spare one for Devlin. And Gemma told me, no, we were going to go with these black polos that are going to have the Pro Wrestling Darwin emblem on the shirt pocket, or well, the front pocket or front of the shirt, which is cool. Like, it's going to be great. Except when they got them and had to put the logo on, the transfer was backward.
What was supposed to be just a simple iron-on transfer that, you know, should have taken 5 minutes, ended up taking hours, and it just wasn't working. The transfers didn't show up properly on the shirt, so Gem had to get some more done. She had to iron them onto other materials, so she had to, you know, go and find some pillowcases. They then had to be cut out. Then she had to super glue those on top of the ones, you know, that didn't work.
So that meant that they had to be glued on to the front of the shirt, and you're trying to do that and the glue is spreading everywhere, it's not sticking, and I'm just sitting there and I'm watching like this vein pump on Gemma's forehead as she's trying to get these emblems put on the shirt.
And it got to midnight, you know, 1 a.m, the day of the first show, and Gemma just burst out laughing, and you know, I laughed, and I think she was laughing at the ridiculousness of the situation, but I think it also masked, you know, someone being right on the edge with sleep deprivation.
And Devlin's just winding her up. I'm like, there's going to be a murder. Like, she will pitch him off the balcony at any point now, and I'm not going to blame her.
The work she puts in is quite astounding, really. Behind the scenes, there's just an endless amount of jobs to do in any independent wrestling organisation, all while balancing a high pressure, full-time executive job in a national company. I don't know how she's done it.
If you look at the show evolve or dissolve on paper, it should be a disaster in that you have 3 wrestlers of great experience in myself, Marcus Pitt, and Gavin McGavin. You have 2 wrestlers of decent experience in Gingero and Leo Pratt. But then you've got an entire roster filling the show who have never stepped foot in front of an audience, not even once. And to ask people to go out there in their very first performance to help launch a brand, you know, on paper it doesn't seem like the best stepping off point, but to me the show represented Brad's time in wrestling really well. That Brad admittedly would probably describe himself as a bit player, that Brad was able to play any role that you needed from him in a wrestling show. If you needed a promo, Brad could do it. If you needed a feud, Brad could carry it. If you needed him to lead a team, he could do that also. If you needed him to be the star of the show, he could do that also. But he was able to just get the most out of the very least in any circumstance that he was put in professional wrestling. And that's what this show was. The show in its entirety is great, much greater than the sum of its parts. That Brad's booking played a huge part in that. The energy of the guys, which was absolutely palpable backstage, and perhaps even more importantly, the energy of the crowd, who I don't know if they realised that they were witnessing history, but it certainly seemed that way, that they understood the gravity of what was going on. And you know, there's no way that they could have understood how hard the backstory was that led to the show that went out in front of them that night. But there was certainly an energy of appreciation and that they understood the magnitude of what was going on in front of them, that this was the launch of the very first locally produced wrestling in Darwin.
So Brett and I first met back in 2007 when I first joined Explosive Pro Wrestling, and we got along great straight from the get-go. Of course, we're both big music fans, we both play music. It led to us being in a pretty awesome band as well once upon a time too. We had a lot of similar interests that I won't bother talking about, but over the years, eventually Brad and I ended up commentating together in EPW, which led to some awesome calls and quite possibly some of my favourite times within the company. Eventually though, Brad moved up to the Northern Territory to Darwin, and he had this crazy idea to start up what we now know as Pro Wrestling Darwin. I thought it was absolutely fantastic and it was such a cool idea. Never been done before in Australian wrestling, so he was making history. He had to jump through some hoops and well, make a few miracles happen to get it done, but he got it done nonetheless. And after that first show had been done, he made his way down to Perth and asked if I'd do the commentary with him in post, which I was absolutely thrilled to bits about. Obviously, we know we work well together, and you know, we could have a bit of fun with it as well, because we know a lot of the people that were involved in the show too, which just made the calling of it that much more fun, as well as personally being very proud to being a part of Australian wrestling history. And then after each show that would happen, Brad would, for one reason or another, end up in Perth, and we'd call those shows too. And obviously now with COVID, the borders are closed, we couldn't actually hang out together to record a show, so Brad had a crazy idea to do it all online, and there's photos of it. It looks batshit crazy. I had my laptop open, recording audio from my interface. I had my iPad playing the show with my headphones, so I could listen to the audio straight from the show, and then my phone, which was called to Brad with one earpiece, so I could hear Brad calling the show as I called it with him. It was the most ridiculous thing, but it worked. And this is just some of the wizardry that Brad can weave when he wants to get something done. And I think it's a testament to him and massively to everyone else involved in Pro Wrestling Darwin, and it's why we all love it.
I'll be honest here, I wrestle for a better future. Because it's not that I'm going for the millions or the hundreds, thousands and blah blah blah. No, I'm not after that. That's very top. But when I say for a better future, I mean like I haven't graduated school, I'm not good with letters, so I've been working in construction site as a painter for the past 7 years. And it's not that I don't like my job, but I don't love my job. So I see wrestling as a getaway, I don't know how you call it, for something better. I don't even care if I make the same money I make from painting with wrestling, but as long as I get to call wrestling my job, instead of saying I'm going to training, I'm going to work, I'm happy.
I met the coolest dude in Darwin, and I have a crush on him still, and I think about him every day, and I dream about him. He was a black-headed python from the Northern Territory, and because I didn't have Pixie, our friend Cookie, who lives in Darwin, said, "Hey, do you want a snake?" And I was like, "Of course I want a snake." And he's like, "Alright, I'll introduce you to a snake." And he introduced me to this snake called Blackie. And he said, "Do you want to take him to the ring tonight?" Of course! So I did. And I got to hang out with Blackie backstage, and he told me all of his secrets, and we exchanged phone numbers. It was the best. It was a really good time.
Probably my absolute favourite memory that I will take away from that trip is the night before we flew out and left town. All of us guys and girls from Perth, and Brad and Jam and some of the local guys, we all went down to Mindle Markets and got something to eat, and then we sat down on the beach and we watched that amazing sunset that they get there. The same sunset that I'd watched from that same beach when I was a young kid, and just sitting in the quiet and just realising that we'd all been part of something really special. We'd been part of the birth of Professional Wrestling Darwin, and part of the birth of this company that is going to now allow wrestlers and wrestling fans alike to live out their dreams, hopefully for a really long time to come. It was just this really overwhelming sense of pride that we had in what we did, and just also hopefulness for the future and what was to come. It was, it's a memory that'll live in my heart forever.
The whole storyline between Mass Extinction and the graduates, Phoenix and Zippo, was that we hated each other. And man, there is no two guys in Pro Wrestling Darwin who I have more respect for than Nico and Lockie. They're the two hardest working dudes on the roster. There is not a week goes by that the two of them aren't there, that they aren't flogging their guts out, and that they aren't doing something new and pushing themselves beyond what they're capable of. And that's no disrespect to anyone else on the roster, because everyone's working hard to get what they want. But for me, Lockie and Nico, being able to work with those two dudes really opened my eyes that having a few months away, living in Queensland, they had just leapt to the next level. And I mean leapt. I hope to see them put more in and get more out from the local promotions around Australia, because I think they've got a lot of potential to do some really great things.
Everyone was super loved. We should talk about that. Just the whole crew was honestly one of the coolest crews that I've worked with. Yeah, obviously super welcoming, but you know,
friendly.
It's expected. But they're helpful of each other. They all wanted each other to get better. You know, they were all.
And that's very rare to see.
They were all building something, and Dale the ref, and he's obviously not just a ref.
He's a lot more than that. Very important person.
He's just about everything that Brad needed and more. Probably one of my favourite moments, aside from Rock Bottom City, was when Erica made her entrance for the first time with Blackie. The utter fear, maybe we could put that here, the fear in referee Dale's eyes was outstanding. I live for that shit. I live for that.
It all started because I started playing a video game with a mate. He was like, "Oh, I'll show you this thing." Way back when I lived in Sydney. And then, just started liking it from there. Then started watching it. Then started getting Jake to watch it. We were watching it together. And then we just sort of started practicing with each other.
Yeah, Billy would sneak videos home so we could watch it, so Mum and Dad wouldn't know that we were watching it. So that was pretty cool. And then Billy would, as me as a little brother, being a lot smaller than he was, and also being keen for it, whereas brother in between us wasn't really keen for it.
Not at all.
Billy would just grab me and just, "Oh, you want to try this?" when we're in the pool, and just pick me up, throw me in the pool, and that pretty much started it from then on. We wrestled in some pretty funny places. After a the netball?
Yeah,
it was a netball
like
game.
Sydney Swifts and Thunderbirds or something had a match there.
And we went down on the court after the game, and Billy just grabbed me and put me in the sharpshooter. Then there was these boys there that were like a rugby team or something, and then they just started calling out, "Tap out! Tap out!" So that was my first moment, putting Billy over in front of a crowd.
Well deserved too, I think.
First of many moments where I probably put people over in front of the crowd, but hey, is what it is. But yeah, I've always admired watching wrestling, so I've always something I wanted to try, and just Yeah, I just remember one time in 4th grade when we were asked what we wanted to do when we grew up, and I said I wanted to be a professional wrestler, and a lot of people laughed at me. And I remember 2 particular friends laughing at me that I don't talk to anymore now, but I wish I did, and if they see this, I am wrestling now, motherfuckers. Look at me now.
Yeah, so I remember those looks. I remember those looks when you say you want to be a pro wrestler.
Yeah.